Hi, my name is Harvey Ward. I'm fortunate to be able to serve our city as a city commissioner for District 2. And I want to thank you for taking your time to participate in this virtual celebration, this virtual observance of Memorial Mile for 2021. It's so important that regardless of what's happening in the world around us, we take time to work through this observance of the cost of war, the true cost of war, which is of course not only paid in dollars and resources, but in the lives of our children, of our sisters and brothers, our mothers and fathers, our co-workers, our friends, our neighbors. That's true of every nation, not just ours. I was so pleased a few years ago to be able to help Veterans for Peace get this designation from our city to officially name this stretch of 8th Avenue Memorial Mile. This year, I'm pleased that we're able to add a little extra touch to that by painting the curbs to remind people what this means to us. I'm glad you've taken a moment to be a part of this year's observance. And when we're able to finally gather here again next year, I'm going to certainly bring my family back and make sure that I continue to make sure that my children understand the real cost of war. Thank you again for being a part of this.
Hi, I'm Scott Camille, President and founder of the Gainesville chapter of Veterans for Peace. I founded this chapter in 1987 in response to U.S. policy in Central America and in the Middle East. In 2006, I saw a film called Arlington West. It was a film about tombstones that were set up in the beach in California, and the tombstones had the names and information, personal information of American service members who were killed in Iraq. And the people's response to the tombstones was overwhelming. The people were very moved, and I thought, wow, I was moved also. And I thought we could do this in Gainesville. So I came back to Gainesville and I asked the chapter if we could do this. And the chapter said, yes, let's do it. So we picked 8th Avenue because it's a great street between two parks, Loblolly Park and West Side Park. And it would be a perfect place for us to set up our display. We set up our first display in 2007. In 2008, we had to cross the street from the south side to the north side and start back down towards 34th Street because of the amount of deaths. In 2019, the city of Gainesville renamed the section of 8th Avenue that we use for our display Memorial Mile. They put up historic markers at either end and they painted the curbs purple. It looks beautiful. You should come by and see. In 2007, we put up 470 tombstones for American soldiers killed in Afghanistan. Today, there are 2,442 American deaths in Afghanistan. 1,972 American servicemen have died in Afghanistan since we've started our project. In 2007, we put up 3,906 tombstones for the American service members killed in Iraq. Today, there are 4,586 American deaths. 680 American soldiers have been killed in Iraq since we started. In total, 2,652 American soldiers have been killed since Veterans for Peace started our Memorial Day weekend project in 2007. We can see nothing that these deaths have bought for our country. When you hear the number 7,028, you see 4 digits in your head, 7028. That doesn't give you an idea of the actual cost of war. The tombstones give you the idea. Each one is personalized, each one has the information about where the person came from, what branch of service they were in, what their birthday was, when their date of death was. It personalizes it and makes the cost of war more understandable for the public, and we want the public to understand the cost of war. When we first started putting up the tombstones, there was mixed reaction from the public. On the first year, we had a truck come up on the curb and run over tombstones. We had a guy get out of a truck and ask us, is this a demonstration or what? And we said, well, what do you think? And he said, I can't tell. And we said, well, That's good. Now, each year, the public became more supportive. Veterans for Peace is very appreciative of the public support and the support from the government, from our city. And I want to thank all of you that support this project.
Memorial Mile holds a very special place in my heart. It started the same year I joined the Army back in 2007. While I appreciate a lot of the experiences my time in the Army offered me, it still left me feeling responsible for many of the awful things I witnessed overseas. I ETS'd in late 2014, and after almost 8 years, I felt like I hadn't done enough with my service. Finding Veterans for Peace and seeing the thousands of tombstones that have been put up each year, especially those after I joined the military, really drove home just what was lost while our country continued to occupy the Middle East. Seeing something tangible to represent the thousands of people we've lost made and continues to make me want to make others aware of just what war means. My time over the last few years saw many visitors to Memorial Mile turning into something of their own. While we at Vets for Peace use it to highlight the very ugly and real cost of war, each of those tombstones represents someone's child, someone's parent, someone's sibling, or someone's friend. Seeing people visit and seeing them place a flag in a loved one's tombstone shows that this has transformed beyond just our event. This has become a way for loved ones to pay respects and give love to someone lost, and I'm so thankful to be a part of that.
I have served my country by intentionally having never served in the military. It is said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a walk along Memorial Mile is worth 1,000 pictures in terms of the impact it has in displaying the immensity of lives lost due to our insanity. Over my lifetime, I have developed a strong anti-war sentiment, and it is truly an honor to know Scott Camille and his story. To me, he is a great hero for what he has done and continues to devote his life to as a superior leader and organizer on the side of truth and justice. I try to help in whatever way I can and have regularly volunteered to be stationed at one of the information and help tables along Memorial Mile. Let us never forget those who paid the ultimate price for corporate America, because those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it.
I think why the Memorial Mile resonates so much with our membership is because, ultimately we're an organization that tries to look out for the working class. And when we work on the Memorial Mile, we can see the sacrifices that so many working class folks have made. I think one of the big problems that we face is that the people that make decisions are so far removed from the consequences of those decisions. And I think one of the things that Memorial Mile does best is bring those consequences back to the forefront and make sure everybody recognizes them. When decisions are made to send folks off to war, or to send a factory overseas, or to expose workers to danger, the people making those calls don't have to face the damage they're doing. And so what I think the Memorial Mile does an amazing job with is bringing that forward. So we've always felt a good bit of solidarity with this project. I'm really looking forward to working with Vets for Peace in the future, and I'm just so proud that my local and myself have been able to participate.
For the last 9 years or so, I've been part of some of the teams of volunteers placing and watching over markers for Memorial Mile on Memorial Day weekend. Each marker gives the name, military branch, and date of death for each veteran killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. The teamwork involved in constructing and placing the markers in the ground struck me as an impressive example of the high level of discipline, punctuality, and organization that comes with the military training of the local chapter's leadership. Teams with walkie-talkies would stand watch around the clock at 3 tents, spaced across the mile of sidewalks starting at 8th Avenue and 34th Street watching over the markers that had been created and placed with such care and hard work, straightening the ones knocked over by the wind. In the daytime, local citizens took their families by to see the displays. Family and friends of the Iraq War and Afghan War veterans came to the tents to sign memory books or share a story. Team members helped the grieving find their loved ones' markers and gave those visiting the displays a small flag to place on the markers for their friend or loved one. To participate in placing the markers, starting at midnight the first night of the weekend display, and then methodically removing them in teams at dusk on the Monday closing the event, sparks a sense of community pride and the feeling of a military operation. For this is an event led by and in large part executed by veterans of the United States military who have decided that they want to fight for peace. I've always been proud every time I participated in one of the events led by these men and women of peace who once trained for war.
I have been working with the Veterans for Peace Memorial Mile since around the beginning. My husband David and I have the honor of putting American flags on all tombstones which have been identified as having local interest. We arrive at Memorial Mile after the tombstones have been set up. The sky is dark. Memorial Mile Road is quiet and peaceful. It's just us and the tombstones. As we walk the mile at pre-dawn, I feel the souls of each person as I read each name. Like Gettysburg, Memorial Mile feels hallowed. I think of their families and loved ones still grieving their losses. For me, war is never the solution. Not ever. Hatred based on land borders or belief systems is never just. I never understand why governments and factions choose war as the option to resolve differences. I value life. Memorial Mile is a deeply powerful display of the people who died in the United States wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in military service. So many lives lost. I remember each as a person living a full and happy life. I grieve for their lost lives, and I grieve for our nation, which has strayed from its original core values of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about what the Memorial Mile has meant to me. The first time I saw it, coming down the Eastern Hill onto 8th Avenue, I was totally awestruck by its appearance, and so I stopped at one of the stations to find out more about it. When I found out what it was for, I decided that I was going to contribute, and each year since, I have been one of the people who arrive at about 1 or 1:30 in the morning to set up for the event. It has meant something very, very dear to me, and I've enjoyed doing it very much. We don't get to know people very much at that hour of the day, but it has given me a great deal of pleasure to help out, especially to help Scott and his crew who are so committed to this project. My brother died not in Vietnam, but because of Vietnam, and so I have a family member who died at the age of 49 due to PTSD and other effects of the war in Vietnam. I've always been anti-war, and this has really triggered me to work more and help to support the peaceful movement.
I've been helping set up Iraq 2004 since Memorial Mile started. When I'm placing the tombstones and when we put them away, I look at the names of all these brave people, and I think about how young they were when they were killed and where they're from. And I hope that by recognizing them as individual human beings, that we will all try harder to figure out how to solve our problems without killing each other. And it's been an honor to be a part of this project over the years.
I'm a third-generation military veteran, and so I grew up hearing stories about war, experiencing the really devastating impacts that those memories and experiences had on both family members, but also in the community that I grew up in Bremerton. So being able to participate in Memorial Mile is incredibly meaningful for me. When I walk down the rows of tombstones during that weekend, you know, I'll inevitably sometimes stop and look at a unit, and I'll recognize not necessarily the names, but actually now I do recognize names, because it's almost like the fallen veterans have become like family members. And it's really moving to me, because I grew up, you know, again, knowing people have been killed in battle, and then I also myself served in combat zones and knew people who have been killed. And as a survivor, there's a lot of guilt about, you know, coming home. Why did I get to come home and other people I knew did not? And so for me, it's really a cathartic experience. Every weekend I'll stop and I'll just burst into tears when I think about the experiences that these young men and women had. And I'm also proud of the fact that Memorial Mile is also geared to remind people about the civilian costs of war, because in modern warfare, it's the civilians who pay the heaviest prices. And if you look at the casualty lists in Iraq and Vietnam and Korea, there's way more civilians that were killed in all those wars than even military members. And so I think it's really important for us at Veterans for Peace that we've been able to highlight that Memorial Day weekend, and to remember this isn't just about the veterans, it's about the costs of war in general. It's really a powerful experience to be able to walk the mile. And I've been able to walk with, again, family members who have lost a veteran, lost a military member to a war, and to take them to a particular tombstone and to put a flag in that tombstone, and to listen to a family member, a wife, a widow, a son, a daughter, talk about their loved one at the tombstone, and then to think that we made this possible, Veterans for Peace and our community support. So I'm just very grateful for the event. I'm really be excited when we can go back to actually doing it. It is a lot of work. We always need help. It's inspiring. I'm thankful for our brothers and sisters in the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, who come out and help us set up. It's really fun. It's powerful. So if you're watching and you haven't had a chance to be involved in Memorial Mile, or if you haven't been doing it for the past few years, because we haven't been able to do it right the last couple of years, we would love to have you come out in 2022.
I am not a veteran. My father was a veteran of World War II, and unlike a lot of veterans at that time, he loved to tell his kids war stories. Sometimes they were funny, and sometimes they were scary, sometimes very sad, but he would always end his story with the same phrase: war is a terrible thing, and we should always look for better solutions. About 10 years ago, Scott asked me to help out on setting up the tombstones for the Memorial Mile, and I was honored to be included as part of the team. Some years setup has gone smoothly and we finished quickly. At other years we've had glitches and faced frustrations that required us to work until almost dawn. But I've always enjoyed the teamwork and the camaraderie. During the setup, the pace is so fast that there's not really time to think about the meaning of all those tombstones. So each year after the last tombstone is set, I turn around and walk back the entire length, both sides, while it's still dark and quiet. And I take this time to really appreciate the love and effort that the Veterans for Peace puts into the memorial each year, and to reflect on the price that we pay for wars, and to renew my belief in the importance of peace. Because war is a terrible thing, and we should always look for better solutions.
A few years back, we had a big rainstorm, and these are the memories I have of scraping hundreds of tombstones to get the the label off because they had been ruined. I would cry. I tried to honor each person's name as I took the label off, and I felt like it was a very intimate act to be removing their name. Of course, we made new labels, and each person I felt that I just knew. It's very moving when family members or friends come to visit the tombstones. It's why I think it's so powerful. We have people who visit from all over the country, and some local people that are asked by family members, like parents who live in other parts of the country, to go and visit and put a marker or a flower. It's a lot of work, but a great community endeavor that people help with every year. While the tombstones are there, it's hallowed ground, and picking up trash, cigarette butts to make sure it feels like a grave site for these people who have died in war. They just can't come back.
After the shock and awe invasion of Iraq in March 2003, Code Pink Women for Peace staff and volunteers met for a strategy session in Washington, D.C. At the strategy sessions, a recurring issue came up, and that was how to support our troops, but not the war. Code Pink reached out to Veterans for Peace in an effort to work together. Soon, soldiers began returning home from Iraq, dying, and innocent Iraqi civilians were also dying. The Peace Ribbon Project was created to honor the victims of war by creating a personalized memorial panel for each person that lost their life. The individual cloth panels are strung together by the hundreds. These panels are made by family members, friends, and groups from all over the country. In 2005, the Peace Ribbon went to Camp Casey in Texas, energized by Cindy Sheehan's profound question, "For what noble cause did my son Casey die?" The tremendous loss of life from this war is difficult to cope with. One way is to remember these lives as individuals, with a family, with goals, with dreams, desires. The Peace Ribbon attempts to honor them.
Every year we hang cost of war posters on the black iron fence by Northwest Park. Their information is based on the National Priorities Project, which tells taxpayers how their taxes could have been spent if we didn't spend them on war. Of course, the other big cost of war is lives. And every year when I'm documenting the whole display, I go to the east end of 8th Avenue up on the hill where you can see all the tombstones at once, and I take pictures. And starting in 2007, I watched as every year there were more tombstones. They filled about half of the south side of 8th Avenue, that's Memorial Mile, in 2007, and they began to move up and pretty much filled the south side and then crossed over the road and began to fill the north side as well. And by 2019, we come very close to using the available space on that side and almost meeting the Peace Ribbon and the cost of war that were hanging on the fence by Northwest Park. Vets for Peace has a mission of world peace. We need world peace.
On November 11th of 2019, residents and elected officials from the Alachua County and the City of Gainesville came together along a stretch of road that has been the home to the Veterans for Peace annual Memorial Day display. They had come together on this day to dedicate and rename that stretch of 8th Avenue Memorial Mile. On that day, Alachua County Commissioner Harvey Ward opened the ceremony and introduced Scott Camille, the president and founder of Chapter 14, Veterans for Peace. I was invited to speak as the artist that had designed the graphic that was used on the signposts for the Memorial Mile. I had been challenged to create something that would not be just another piece of romantic grist for the war-mongering mill, so I had kept the image literal. The figure in the foreground is bent in grief and frustration, and the tombstones wind off into the background, a river of loss. So after each of us had said our piece, it was time for the mayor of the city of Gainesville, Lauren Poe, to come up and give his remarks and read the official declaration. And it was official. We had the landmark Memorial Mile. One thing has stuck with me in particular about that day, and that was something that Commissioner Harvey Ward said in his opening remarks. He had been the one that Scott had approached with the original proposal, and it was Commissioner Ward that took the proposal through the proper channels for approval. And he said on that day that he wanted to be able to report a victory after a hard-fought battle and great adversity and a huge win against great odds, when in reality the truth was he met no resistance. I mean, how great is that? The display has been so visible and so embraced by the community, it met with immediate consensus, immediate approval. That is particularly remarkable given what kind of display Memorial Mile is. It's not a typical war memorial or event. This is tombstones, not statues. This isn't heroism and sacrifice and tattered battle flags and cannons and guns and men on big horses. This is grief and suffering. It's avoidable human suffering and loss, both civilian and military.
When I think about Memorial Mile, I think about the sacrifices our young men and women made for our country. And I think about my kids, Connor, who's just turned 28, and Christopher, who's about to turn 26, and all the memories and times that I've had with them throughout their short life. And I pray that our country continues to be mindful of the sacrifices of the future, and that we always look to find peace before war.
Every year, the display had a devastating impact on me, seeing those rows and rows of tombstones and realizing that each one meant an irreparable hole, an unending grief in the lives of those who loved that service member. The Memorial Mile display makes the true cost of our destructive wars so clear to me. If we had earned something for these terrible losses, there would at least be some reason for the unimaginable sacrifices. But as it is just a horrific waste of young lives. I'm very grateful to my husband, Scott Camille, and all the wonderful volunteers who work tirelessly year after year to create this powerful event.
I participate in the Memorial Mile display because I think we, the American people, need to be reminded that the wars we've been having have been at a terrible cost in the loss of real human lives, so that in the future we will hopefully choose more wisely than we have in the past whether or not to go to war at all. Personally, I believe the use of military force should be the absolute last resort after diplomacy and all other efforts have failed, and that we have engaged in these wars foolishly, and that these dead heroes are the direct result. We need to be reminded of the consequences of following leaders who choose war for their own petty or inane reasons. We need to be reminded to not believe the lies that have led us into these wars, which continue to this day, claiming more lives of more heroic young men and women. Just ask those who have lost loved ones because of these wars we've been having whether we should continue these wars or not, whether it's worth the cost or not.
The loss of life is just too great a cost.
And now, this message, this effort, this Memorial Mile display has become part of the lexicon of Alachua County. And going forward, let it be a reminder to all of us to insist on peace.
I stand upon this field of death where thousands drew their final breath. I've come to pay my last respects and ask what they died for. 1,000 generations' blood has flown like rivers through the mud, tributaries to the flood of centuries of war. The treaty last not long at all, till the cannon blast and the musket ball. The die was cast when the bugle called us all to the ways of war. Stones, we rip the flesh and break the bones. Tyrants lusting for the throne, no matter what the cost. We point our missiles at the sky. Let's slip the dogs of war to fly. How many billions more must die till we comprehend the loss? Alexander, Caesar, Genghis Khan, the Kremlin and the Pentagon, arrows, spears and smarter bombs, such are the ways of war. Did the treaty last not long at all, till the cannon blast and the musket ball? The die was cast when the bugle called us all to the ways of war, all to the ways of war. So we